Vikings, let's win the game.
Vikings fan, this team is going through one of those stretches. There's talk of a trade, buzz around a possible signing, real uncertainty on offense, and a debate that could change the direction of the team before the season even kicks off. That matters fast, and the stuff that doesn't involve arrivals or departures brings that feeling every fan knows all too well. Just when you think you understand what's going on, another bomb drops. So stay with me, because the final story really does change how you see all of this. There's something hanging in the air in Minnesota that you just can't ignore. We're talking about a situation that could completely reshape this team over the next few years. This isn't just about 2026, it's about what comes after if this current plan doesn't work out the way they expect. And people around this team are already talking about it. The point is simple but heavy. The Vikings are betting on a group of quarterbacks that still have a lot to prove. There's talent there, there's potential, but there's also doubt. And when there's doubt at the most important position in the game, you already know how that ends in the NFL. A name has started to circulate. It's catching everyone's attention for a reason. Baker Mayfield. That's right, a former first overall pick with experience, production, and that style that mixes confidence with controlled chaos. According to reporter Jeff Howe, he could make a lot of sense in Minnesota if he hits free agency in 2027. And now, things get serious, because if this is even on the radar, it means there's a real chance none of the current options become the long-term answer. That is the big picture here. Kyler Murray arrived with expectations. J.J. McCarthy is still a promise. Carson Wentz is trying to reinvent himself. And young Max Brosmer is on the outside looking in. But what if none of them work out? Then you're back in the market again. And Baker Mayfield, like it or not, is a guy who could command more than $50 million per year on his next deal. That's not a cheap gamble. That's not a project. That's a franchise decision. Think about this. If the team has to go after him, it means that high draft pick didn't pay off. It means the current plan failed, and that carries weight on the field and inside the locker room. Speaking of that, another name that popped back up was Joshua Dobbs. Yes, that same guy. He was just released by the Patriots after they couldn't find a trade partner. A veteran, smart quarterback who has already worn purple and gold and knows the environment. I'm not saying he's coming back, but that's how the NFL works. A door closes today. Another one opens tomorrow. And you know how quickly depth conversations can change in this league. Now let me ask you something, honestly. Do you think this current group figures it out, or does this feel like another quarterback saga waiting to happen? Tell me what you think down in the comments, because what's coming next? Now we start getting into real help on offense, and that could change how this team plays in a hurry. Quick ask, subscribe to the channel, and jump into the comments. Your opinion really matters here. Here's where it gets interesting, because we're getting into a potential signing that directly impacts the offense. And this is not just any name. The conversation started casually, almost in passing, but when you really think about it, it makes a lot of sense for where the Vikings are right now. It all starts with a clear need. The team lost depth in the wide receiver room. That's no secret. There's talent at the top, but once you look beyond that, it feels like something is missing. Experience. Someone who has been in big moments and knows how to show up when it matters. And then the name comes up. DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, that DeAndre Hopkins. One of the most respected wide receivers of the past decade. A guy who may not be in his physical prime anymore, but still knows how to play at a high level. And what makes this even more interesting is not just the name, it's the connection. Hopkins made it clear he would be open to playing in Minnesota. And more than that, he openly talked about reuniting with Kyler Murray. The two had strong chemistry in Arizona. They put up huge numbers together. And in an offense still trying to find its identity, that matters a lot. Maybe more than people think. Let's be real. This isn't just nostalgia. This is about fit. Hopkins might not be that 1,400-yard receiver anymore. But in the red zone, on third down, and in critical plays, he's still dangerous. Very dangerous. And that kind of player makes a difference for a team trying to compete at a high level, especially when drives get tight and windows get smaller. Think about this. Justin Jefferson on one side, Jordan Addison on the other, and Hopkins stepping in as an experienced third option. That changes everything. Defensive reads change. Space opens up. The quarterback's confidence goes up. And there's another key detail. He's not chasing a ring. He said himself he just wants to be in a good environment, around good people. And whether you like it or not, Minnesota offers that right now. Of course, it's not perfect. His production last season was low, limited snaps, modest numbers. But when he was on the field, he was still efficient. He graded out really well. That tells you the talent is still there. The real question is it worth making this move now? Because this could be the kind of signing that doesn't make huge headlines at first, but ends up deciding big games later. That is where this gets interesting. And this right here, this is insight from someone who follows this closely, not just surface-level headlines, because the next story shifts from fit to money. Serious money. And it involves the most important name in this offense. This is where things shift to another level. This is no longer just about a trade or a simple signing. This is big money territory, league-wide respect, and recognition for the guy who has been carrying this offense for years. Because while new names are coming in or being discussed, there's one guy who has already proven everything, and he could reset the market again. I'm talking about Justin Jefferson. His name is back in the spotlight after another massive wide receiver contract just shook the league. Another player just signed a huge deal, and that automatically puts the focus back on Minnesota because Jefferson used to be the highest paid at his position. Then others came in. They passed him. And now the question is simple. How long does that last? There are people around the league saying the answer could come soon. Very soon. A recent projection has Jefferson landing a new deal worth $176 million over 4 years. That would put him right back on top. And honestly, it wouldn't be an exaggeration. Let's be clear here. We're talking about a player who has never had a season under 1,000 receiving yards. Even with major instability at quarterback, even with the offense struggling at times, he still produces. That's not normal. That's elite level. And there's something else people don't talk about enough. Jefferson is not just about numbers. He changes how defenses play the Vikings. He creates space. He demands double coverage. He opens opportunities for everyone else. That ripple effect matters. Imagine that in the current situation. If the team stabilizes the quarterback position, if they get consistency, Jefferson could explode again. And suddenly, that contract that looks expensive today starts to look like a bargain. But there's another side to it. A deal like that impacts the salary cap. It forces decisions. It can influence future signings. It can even limit moves the team wants to make. So it's not just about paying him, there's strategy involved. Real roster strategy. And this is where the fan perspective comes in. You want to see him rewarded. You want to see him happy. But you also want a competitive team around him. And that tension is real. And I'll tell you this. Decisions like this define an era. So let me ask you, would you extend him now and make him the highest paid again? Or would you wait and see how this offense comes together first? I really want to hear your take on this. Because what comes next takes us from contract pressure to on-field pressure, and a young name is stepping right into that conversation. Here's the situation. We're getting into a scenario that blends a potential trade, roster projection, and that uncertainty that gives you a real uneasy feeling. Because this is not just about who is already on the team, it's about who could come in to fill a role that is still wide open. The departure of Jalen Nailor left a clear gap in the wide receiver room. There's no point pretending otherwise. Right now, behind Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, there's young talent there, but not much real game experience. And that matters when the season gets tough. That's where a potential trade starts to make sense. The name that came up is Keon Coleman, a young player with upside but who hasn't quite delivered as expected in Buffalo. And that creates an opening, because within the Bills organization, there's already discussion about his future. Depending on what happens in the draft, he could become a trade candidate. And that's where Minnesota enters the picture. Let's be real. This feels like a smart move if it's executed correctly. Coleman wouldn't come in as a star. He would come in hungry, trying to prove he can still be that high-level prospect people believed in. And in an offense where Jefferson and Addison draw attention, that could really help his development. That part matters. But of course, there's no guarantee. There's risk. There's a chance he doesn't produce. And then you've spent assets on a trade that doesn't fix the problem. But there's also the other side. Sometimes a player just needs a new environment, a real opportunity, the right fit, and Minnesota could offer that. While this discussion is happening, there's another issue heating up at the same time. Who is going to get the ball to these receivers? Because building a wide receiver group means nothing if the quarterback situation remains unstable. And that's where J.J. McCarthy comes in. His name has gained momentum again after people around the league have shown confidence in him, and even former teammates backed him. Some believe he can surprise in this competition, that he can rise under pressure. But there's also reality. He still has to prove consistency. He has to show he can run this offense game after game. It's not just about talent, it's about execution. And when you stack that against more experienced quarterbacks, this becomes a tough battle, a very tough one. So look at the situation. A potential trade for a young receiver trying to find himself, and at the same time, a quarterback who needs to prove he is the future of the franchise. That is a lot riding on one stretch. Tell me what you think about bringing in Coleman and betting on his growth alongside McCarthy. I want to hear your take, because what's coming next brings a strong opinion from someone who actually wore this jersey, and it could shake up this entire competition. This is where things heat up. This is no longer projection or trade speculation. This is direct analysis from someone who understands the game from the inside, and who is not sitting on the fence at all. Because when it comes to the quarterback battle, everyone has an opinion. But when a former player from the team raises serious concerns, that shifts the whole conversation. And the name at the center of it all is Kyler Murray. He arrives with status, with expectations. He is seen by many as the favorite, but not everyone is buying into that so easily. Ben Leber, who once wore this jersey, raised a concern that matters. He questioned whether Murray truly fits Kevin O'Connell's system, and that's not a small detail. That's the foundation of the offense. Let's be clear. The issue is not talent. Murray is dynamic, explosive. He has produced big numbers in this league, but his style has always leaned heavily toward shotgun play, open field, constant movement. And the Vikings system demands something different. More under-center snaps, faster reads within structure, and more discipline in the pocket. And that hasn't exactly been his strength so far. Leber pointed to numbers that support this. For years in Arizona, Murray operated mostly out of the shotgun. When they tried to shift that, the volume increased a bit, but it still fell short of what Minnesota typically requires. And that brings up the real question. Can he adapt? Because it's not just about the quarterback adjusting. The coach also has to adapt play calling, find a middle ground, and that doesn't always happen quickly. And if it doesn't happen quickly, this gets uncomfortable fast. While many still assume Murray will be the starter, there's another perspective around the league. It would take a lot for J.J. McCarthy to win this job. So yes, the competition may exist on paper, but in reality, it may already be leaning one way. The problem is, games are not won on paper. If Murray doesn't fit, the pressure will come fast, and it will be heavy, and that could disrupt everything this team is trying to build. So think about this situation. A quarterback with elite talent, but real questions about fit, and a young player trying to surprise from behind. That is why this battle feels so important, because the next story pushes the debate even further, and it involves a name many people had already moved on from. And if you thought things were already intense, just wait, because now we're stepping into an opinion that has people completely divided. One of those where you either agree right away or you strongly push back. The setup is the same: an open quarterback competition, training camp, preseason, everything on the line. But then comes a different perspective, a take that goes against the obvious, and the name at the top of that take is Carson Wentz. Yes, that Carson Wentz. A lot of people had already placed him as a secondary option in this battle. Just depth, nothing more. But Ben Leber doesn't see it that way. Not even close. Let's be direct. He went further than that. He said that within what the Vikings offense is asking for right now, Wentz might actually be the best fit among the three. And when you really look at the argument, you can see where it comes from. When Wentz was on the field last season, even in a short stretch, the offense looked different. The ball pushed downfield more. The plays became more aggressive. There was more explosiveness, and that stood out. Leber highlighted exactly that. Wentz's ability to use the entire field, to keep the playbook open, and to allow the offense to explore more possibilities. And there's an important detail here. He also took a direct shot at J.J. McCarthy. He pointed out limitations in certain throws, especially over the middle, something that matters a lot in this system. So this is not just praise for Wentz, it's a direct comparison. And when you put everything together, one question naturally comes up. Are we underestimating him? Because while everyone looks at Murray as the favorite and sees McCarthy as the future, the guy who might best execute the system could be sitting right there, overlooked. That is what makes this tricky. Of course, that doesn't mean he will start the season. Leber himself expects Kyler Murray to take that job early on, but he made one thing clear. If this competition is real, the best player should win. No automatic starter, no contract dictating the decision, and that changes everything, because it opens the door for surprises. It opens the door for a completely different outcome. And in the middle of all this, there's still another name hovering around the offense. He is looking for a reunion. He is looking for an opportunity. And at that point, this is no longer just an internal battle. This is building the roster with real intent. Take a second and think about everything we just went through together. This is big. There's trade talk that could reshape the future of the offense. There's a potential signing that could elevate the roster. There's a star looking for financial recognition. And in the middle of it all, an open battle at the most important position in sports. This is not just another offseason. This is about defining direction. Because if this quarterback group doesn't work, everything resets. If it does, this team could take a leap we haven't seen in years. And with the right pieces coming in, whether through a trade or a signing, things can change fast. That is why every one of these decisions feels bigger right now. And I'll tell you this, anyone who lives and breathes Vikings football feels it. There's that mix of hope and doubt, that feeling of this could be it, but still holding back just a little. But one thing is clear, this team is not standing still. They're trying. They're making moves. They're searching for answers. And now, I want to hear from you. I want to understand how you see this moment for the team. Because what comes next is going to shape a lot of things for years to come. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go.